Last week we were talking about how infinite spirit vibrated a portion of itself, and through that vibration of Om created all things. And also, like Serena just said, it's, Yogananda said that God dreamed this universe. So this portion of himself, he became the universe, and we talked about that last week. And this week we're talking about the life that lights all men. And we're thinking, well, what is that life that animates all of us? And of course, it's divine consciousness, it's prana, it's divine energy that flows through all of us, like we were just chanting. And that energy that flows through us, even from the first beginning of yogic teachings, we know that prana is connected to breath. And why do all the meditators focus on the breath? Why do we focus so much on the breath? Because that breath increases our awareness of the prana within us. And we're aware of the prana flowing through us and the direction of the prana, whether the prana is moving out or in, or whether the prana is moving down or up. When we become more aware of that, we learn how to direct that prana to experience more and more of the divine within us. And that's why the breath is so important. And when you think about how important for our daily lives breath is, don't we all rejoice at the first breath of a newborn baby? It's such a big deal. Obviously, each of us have gone through it. But for those mothers or those fathers and mothers that experience that, it's like everybody waits and waits and waits until the first moment they hear that breath. And okay, the baby is okay. And so happy. And on the other hand, don't we mourn when our loved ones take that last breath? And for us, that's a signal that, that soul has left that body. And how wonderful we know that we are not our bodies. Yogananda would say it's like changing clothes. I put on a new overcoat when I came and took this body. Or, the great ones see that their body, they don't have any idea that they're identified with the body as opposed to infinite spirit. And so breath, this is why we practice. But then you also think, how much life is in all aspects of creation. It's said that God sleeps in the rocks. He slowly stirs in the plants. He begins to awaken animals. And he has the potential to become fully awake in humans, in human beings. And yet, the difference between a rock and a human, Yogananda said, is the same difference between an unawakened human and the awakened masters. There's that much difference in awareness of the divine light and life that flows through us. And the great ones come to show us, wow, look at, you are this life, you are that light. And they are channels of this infinite life and light to us, their disciples, their chelas. But look at the light they bring into the world. They become the light of the world. They illuminate the planet. They become emissaries of divine light in the planet. And they uplift the planet in their light. And that's the role of the avatar when they come. And you think of in the Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda gives many, many examples of how the great saints are not only aware of their light, but are channels of this divine light in this world, but even his descriptions of an experience in cosmic consciousness. If you've read the Autobiography, when he's in his guru's ashram in Puri, Sri Yukteswar touches him on the heart and he goes into cosmic consciousness. And he describes it for us. This is what cosmic consciousness is like. And later on in Autobiography, he writes he gives us the poem Samadhi. This is what Samadhi is like. He said, memorize it, read it every day, memorize it. And when you start to really dive deep into that poem, you start to understand why he wants us to read it. He wants us to remind ourselves every day, this is really the light that flows through you. This is the light that is you, the life that is you, not this mistaken identity of this limited form. And, and they tell us, when we just identify with this physical form, we think this is all who we are. And yet, as we become more and more aware of the divine energy that flows through us, of other, like the astral body, the energy body, the body of light, our auras, as we learn more and more about these truths, we begin to realize that what goes on inside of us, not outside of us, is what matters. And that if I can control my inner awareness, then I can control my reactions and how I experience everything that's going on around me. And then if we take it one step further and we just go to consciousness, if you have the consciousness of oneness, you are not separate, and your experience is of oneness. All it is a change of a thought. So on the astral plane, we're much more aware of who we really are, but on the causal plane, it's just a mistaken thought that we might be separate from God. So let's try to always uplift our awareness higher and higher, from the physical to the astral plane to the causal plane to that oneness. That awareness grows. Very soon we will be taking a group, Keshava and I will be taking a group of 43 of us to Israel. Keshava and I leave today after Satsang, but the group will arrive on Wednesday or Thursday in Jerusalem. We'll all meet there. And, so in preparation for this trip, we've been reading back over the life of Jesus and going back over it. And, this quote, the light shined in darkness. The quote comes from the chapter of John in the New Testament of the Bible. And he says, then the light shined in the darkness, but the darkness comprehended it not. And, you look at these great ones that the darkness cannot see, they cannot comprehend. And, Jesus came and just brought love and light. And yet the power authorities at the time, the people that were trying to control the religion, the Jewish religion and the Jewish state, the Jewish religion, they didn't have a state, they were slaves. They thought that this light was a threat to their power, to their money, to the form of the great temple that they had and all the rules and laws that they had. So they crucified him. The darkness comprehended it not. And we think ourselves also, what is darkness? Darkness is when we want to close our eyes to the truth. And darkness is spiritual ignorance, and hopefully we're becoming more and more and more awake and more into the light. But not always. Sometimes, I know certainly in my past, like even certainly before I found Ananda, but then slowly as we mature spiritually, you look back and you see, wow, look at all those places that I just did not want to look because I thought ignorance was bliss. If I don't know about it, I won't have to put out the energy to do something about it. And we have that in different areas of our lives, I think. We have certain areas we don't really want to put out energy to change, whether it's in ourselves or whether in our environment around us. We don't really want to put out the energy to bring the light there. And so we can ask ourselves, where do we experience the most light? Where do we experience the most truth in our lives? Is it in meditation? Is it in our spiritual practices? Is it in spiritual company? Where is it? And how can I increase that in my life? Maybe I need to pull out the Autobiography of a Yogi instead of watching this video tonight, or just read the words of the masters, or listen to a recording. How can I bring more light? Where am I compartmentalizing my life? Because I used to do that. I'm very spiritual on this side of my life, but this whole other side, I forget about God all the time. I only think about him when I sit back down to meditate or when I show up at the Sangha. And so I did that actually for a long time, and I was enjoying both, actually. I thought I can have my cake and eat it too. But, at some point you realize that it doesn't work anymore. At a certain point it just doesn't work anymore. For a while it works, so enjoy it while it lasts. But at some point they become irreconcilable, because like everyone who is searching to achieve their joy and their joy from something outside themselves, they will end up through experience finding that joy, if it comes in a short-term happiness, it will not last. Or if you're trying to avoid suffering by escaping through TV or through drinking or eating or whatever we are escaping through, that also doesn't last. It's like we want to go to bed and pull up our covers over our head, and the light just seems way too bright. People who are going through hard times, they don't want to show up because they're either ashamed or they feel like they're safer in the darkness. They feel like if they stay in bed with the covers pulled over their head, they'll actually be more comfortable and safe. That may last for an hour or a day, but it doesn't last long. And if we go through life like that, we're just going to have to come back again and just face that light at some point. But what is that light? The minute we open our hearts to that light, all darkness disappears. The light is waiting for us to show all little teeny corners of our heart that we thought were hidden. And of course, they're not hidden. God knows our every thought. He knows our every feeling. So we can't hide anything, so why pretend to ourselves? Just take any sides of us that we are not fully embracing in the light and just open our hearts in hope, in love, and trust, and faith. And the light is waiting for us to shine those thousands of suns and moons. From thy body do shine. God bless you.
Yogananda Ji tells us the story of when he visited Ram Gopal Muzumdar. Around midnight, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of that infinite vault, which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep? Sir, how can I sleep in the presence of lightning, blazing whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen. And maybe our eyes may not be refined enough to see the spiritual radiations, the light of 1,000 suns, as the Gita referred to. But even that little bit of peace, that little bit of light that we do experience, it's the same. It's just a question of quality. And so even if that is just a fleeting experience, we can build on that step by step until we live more and more in that light. And Daya referred to the poem Samadhi, and Guruji suggested we memorize it because it reminds us. And being reminded of that high state, it attracts that high state to us. And so we need to remind ourselves more and more. Shakespeare said, "Assume a virtue, even if you have it not." It's as if you lack self-confidence. Then we need to study, we need to prepare ourselves, but then we act as if we had confidence. And the more we act as if we have confidence, we attract success. When we have success, we have real confidence, just through that practice, that exercise. Yogananda Ji said, act enthusiastic and you will be enthusiastic. There's the story that you may know of the bird hunter who was not catching any birds. In fact, the birds got used to him. They knew when he was coming, they sensed it, and they flew away. And then he discovered where they were flying to. There was a holy man in meditation, and the birds would flock around the holy man. They were attracted to him. And so the hunter thought, well, what if I put on orange robes? And he did so. I have a peaceful smile. I have my mala. But I'll keep my shotgun close by in case the birds come along. And he started doing his japa. And the more he did, the more he felt peaceful. The more the birds came around. And he had no more desire to hunt the birds, because by practicing, by doing what the holy man was doing, he became a holy man. We did an affirmation today, and we can do an affirmation mechanically in our mind so that we don't even remember what we're saying. Or we can put our heart into it. And when I first learned about affirmations, I was a little skeptical. I thought it just seemed a little unnatural, like wishful thinking or self-hypnosis. And I had a friend who told me how he practiced an affirmation to overcome anger. He took the affirmation from the scientific healing affirmations of Guruji. And it was one of those long ones. It was about 5 paragraphs long, but with very powerful words. I make up my mind never more to wear anger on my face. I will not inject the poison of anger into the heart of my peace, and thus kill my spiritual life. Guruji has such powerful, such colorful words that he uses. And this friend of mine kept repeating this a lot one day. And then something happened. He began to feel what it would be like to be free of anger. And that affirmation planted the strong desire for that freedom. And the affirmation makes us hungry for that which we affirm. And the next day, this man found himself getting angry. But immediately, he decided, I cannot stay angry. He had developed in himself, he was wanting that feeling of freedom more than the satisfaction of feeling that he was right, or therefore someone else was wrong. And we can cultivate that desire for something even if we don't have it at present. And in the end, it doesn't really matter if we see the light of 1,000 suns. More important is we feel joy, we feel peace in our hearts. And that is the goal of the spiritual path. Thank you.